Back to Arena the Contest. Today we'll be doing the Shooter class spotlight video. So we'll be jumping into all the guys throwing magic missiles and exploding arrows and all kinds of fun blizzards and whatnot. So I'll be this is the high damage um, class that Arena has that is range. So very powerful class to have on your team. All right, before we jump into it, we are going to look at the miniatures of the tanks that we missed out on last time. All right, so starting off with Jirana, the Amazon. Maybe she's the queen, who knows? She seems pretty queenly. So she's got relatively pretty good details. I mean, in her armor and her cape and hair and everything. But as we've seen already with her reworked miniature, it looks, of course, just like everything else, even better. But I feel like this one wasn't horrible detail-wise, and could be a great one for still painting if you got the time for it. All right, then we're going to move to Nacrel, the Death Knight. His as well is relatively pretty good. There's some stuff that's kind of blobby, dirty, especially around the bottom of the cape area where it just kind of looks blobby and it doesn't necessarily look quite shredded like they're going for the look. And but otherwise, I mean, it's all right of a miniature. You could probably make it look pretty decent as well. All right, then we got Sir Eric, the Paladin. Um, So, biggest difference with him is he looks pretty thin. Like, I think Sir Eric needs to maybe get some muscle milk or something and beef up because I mean, he looks all right. It's just, he looks kind of thin and, his new shield and everything is going to get way more detailed. And we'll just get even a better look, especially with this sword, which kind of is pretty lackluster. In fact, I mean, I think even Nacrol's. His actually has a little more detail, but Sir Eric's is just kind of boring. All right, and then we're gonna move to Rurik. It's kind of funny because I didn't realize that there is a pretty good amount of detail on. I don't know. I'm sure how well you can see this shield, but there's actually is more detail on that shield than I originally thought there was. But of course, the new one's gonna be even better. And even still, you can see tiny little divots right, not even on it. Hold on. Right here in near his like under chainmail armor, and so it kind of does look like that. I don't know how well it's gonna come out if you were to paint it, but it's not bad. Anyway, his otherwise his plate armor is just kind of boring, right? I mean, it's just pretty plain ordinary, not really anything special about it. But anyway, so this is Rourke, and the other thing I just noticed too is check these boots. Look at that. It's like elf boots or something. It's just kind of funny. Anyway, just notice that. All right, so now we're going to focus on the stars of tonight. We have Juliet, the Ice Sorceress. She's got a lot of different type of abilities. I think she's a shooter that you're gonna have a little bit better chance to hit with things, but still be able to um, do high damage. But she's gonna give you a pretty good chance of making your strikes. Zanac. We got Zanac here. I guess I didn't really get Juliet, but real close. She is potentially one of the worst miniatures in all of the arena. Um, so you'll see that she has some shape in here, but not a lot. And then I think I mentioned in a previous stream, I mean, she had like some people received a miniature of hers that was just like it just looked like a big blob, like a blob with no shape or features at all. It was horrendous. All right, so we got Zanac here, the Fire Sorcerer. He's a direct damage, mostly single target type character, but extremely high damage. You can see him holding his fireballs and everything. So, I mean, his miniature isn't really super exciting to me. I mean, the fireballs are cool, which would be awesome if you get painted, but other than that, he's kind of, I don't know, not too exciting looking. All right, then we got Averlum, the Wizard. This is probably my favorite shooter, and even his detail on his armor is pretty decent. You see some detail up here in the front area. That's pretty good. But then even better is when you look at his staff here. So you'll see that there's like this dragon head that comes out the end of his staff, and that's the same thing for the new miniatures as well. So, um, I mean, obviously it's probably going to look better, but uh, it's pretty similar to that one, but still, better, much more detailed and enhanced from what we've seen. All right, then we got Niary the Hunter. Her miniature is pretty similar as well. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people pointed out is her bow is like super sized and it almost looks like it's like got dragon type of stuff on it. Like it's just crazy how much stuff they put on her bow. But other than that, I mean it's pretty close to what you're seeing here. Um, anyway, so that is what we'll be looking at tonight. Niary is a also very easy level, but good solid damage dealer. And now we're gonna jump into Tabletop Simulator. All right, bringing code here. All right, here we are back in Tabletop Simulator. We're gonna be starting off here with the shooter page. Just give me a target. My deadly shots will do the rest. Not as bad as some of the other ones. All right, so we're going to start off tonight with Averlum the Wizard. He is, like I said before, he is my favorite of the shooter characters. Just I don't know. I think I like his style, and then some of his abilities are pretty good, but not. I mean, I wouldn't think that they're necessarily that much better than the other guys, but it's just my style. I kind of like it. So we'll talk about that. So he's a shooter who optimizes for attacking multiple targets. He deals reduced damage against single combatants. His attacks have tactical and defensive effects. He's the most productive hero in strategies based on attacks in area. So, in many words that they used, I'd say he is the AOE king of area, effect, and arena. I think all of his abilities, yeah, all of his abilities hit somebody else. You're never getting a single ability that only hits one person. Well, I guess the counter spell is technically one that hits only one person, but other than that, his actual attacking abilities hit everyone. So you'll see his offense is pretty high here, which is pretty. This is probably going to be accurate for most of the shooters in this class because there's just very high damage. Think of the shooters as your ranged version of brutes. So, anyway, so high defense, I'd say, yeah. I mean, this is probably going to be pretty accurate to what we see. Low defense, exactly what you'll see. And then mobility, we'll probably see a little bit of movement around that, along with effects and handling. So his mobility is a little bit higher. I could see some arguments made for that. And then effects. Yeah, there's definitely some effects, and then he definitely is a really pretty easy character to use. So we'll look at why that is. So starting off with his primary attacks, we have magic missiles, range 8, which would be the case for all the shooters. One enemy, it ignores all harmful conditions on you. So you're gonna get to ignore. I forgot to pull out the condition sheet here. So you're going to be able to ignore things like cursed. I mean, that's the funny thing is I feel like some of these benefits don't get used enough, and things like those is a really good one to ignore if you, especially if you know you're going to have to take it. So 10 damage. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's a super high hit, especially for the shooters, but it's okay. And then the effect is two other enemies within range take 3 damage each. So within range will be within that 8 range. So that's another six damage basically. Um, so you got a 16 damage hit. So you get like two extra little shots on some other guys. It's a really good one for like cleanup. You got some low health other minions, zombies or whatnot that you need to take out, but you don't want to use all of your damage on. And this is a good one for that. I guess I should skip the whole stats part. It's probably the most important part. Thanks, Code.
You're welcome.
All right, let's jump back here for a second. We're gonna go back. So, uh, all shooters have 55 hit points, which is the lowest hit points in the entire game. So they're very fragile. We got 8 basic attack. That's the strongest you can get. 6 defense. That's the lowest, and then 5 movement, which is also the lowest amount of movement. So think of your shooters as extremely high damage, but really easy to get destroyed by other damage dealers if they get focused or other teams. All right, so we're going to go back now to the primary abilities and go into Arcane Blast. This is one that gets utilized over and over and over, often in Arena, and I'd say more so probably in PvE than necessarily PvP. So it's a range 8, all combatants in a 3x3 area. What that means is, let's pull some miniatures over here, just to show everyone, just to make sure it's a little easier sometimes to get the visual of it. And we're gonna need oop, need one more. Yeah, there you go. All right, throw her in there. All right, so this is a 3x3 area. It assumes your center of your attack is where this Niary character is standing. So it's three right, 3 up. But when you make your attack, it'll be around that area. But you can plan it essentially however you need to. And one thing to keep in mind too is, let's say in this case, Jade is forget that these other people are. I mean, I could say Niary is an enemy if we want, but let's pretend that Jade is one of our allies, and we're gonna hit. Um, we're gonna hit Zanac over here. So we're planning to plop this down right on top of. Maybe put Zanac here, Niary, and in that attack, since it's a 3x3 area, there is friendly fire. So if you were to do that attack centered right here, then it would hit Jade. So for you to optimize your attack, you say you place it right here, and then that way you wouldn't be hit. So obviously you can't, if this was like another one of your allies, then that's not going to work. So keep that in mind. But you'll need to make sure where you're placing your area attack does not interfere with your own allies, because they will take damage well. All right, so it is a 9 damage per hit, which is still pretty decent, especially for an AoE attack. And then the effect is you may move any number of targets hit 1 square each. So, um, one thing to remember too is on multiple strike attacks, you have to roll each attack. So if you roll, let's say you're targeting 3 enemies or 2 enemies, you have to roll each time for that. So it does decrease your chance of being able to make all your hits, especially if you roll light code. So you're gonna want
Especially that.
yeah, you're gonna want to keep that in mind because the more times you roll, the less likely you're gonna be able to make all your strikes. But then you get the ability to move any number of targets that are hit 1 square each. So that can be really good for positioning. You can throw, you know, maybe you're close to some of your melee friendly heroes. You can throw some enemies next to them, or maybe you throw an enemy into the lava. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities you can do with that, so it gives you a lot of positioning, especially for each person is going to get a movement. Obviously, it's only one movement, so you're not going to be going crazy with this type of effect, but I mean, it's still pretty good. And well, I guess we forgot to cover accuracy as well. So accuracy is the passive for the shooter class. The trigger is hitting a target from at least 5 squares away on the first hit of your turn. So that means you need to be 5 or more squares away to get 4 additional damage, which is very important. So you want to keep your shooters away from the fight as much as possible. And another thing to keep in mind about that is on the aspect of it saying on the first hit of your turn, just like any other multi-strike abilities, if you do Arcane Blast, you're only going to be able to do it one time, and it needs to be your first target is the one that's further away. And I see this happen many, many times. So you want to keep this in mind yourself. Let's say you're trying to shoot Niary and Zanac here. Oh, where'd my Averlum go? All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So Zanac is 5 squares away. Jade is 4 squares away. You're doing your Arcane Blast here. Um, you'll notice that if you say, okay, I'm attacking Jade first, you're not going to get your accuracy bonus because she's only 4 squares away. So if you make that hit, then you will essentially waste accuracy. So make sure that if you were to do that, you say, okay, well, my first target's Zanac. You do the roll, and then after that, do Jade, and you get the benefit of that. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about another thing related to AOE's. So AOE's can also only work within your range. So let's say, let's see. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. We're gonna say uh, Averlum here is doing Arcane Blast, and you're saying, okay, well, I'm doing Arcane Blast right here on Jade, and Zanac, who's standing here at range 9 away, um, it will not hit him if you say this is the center, because you can't exceed that range 8. You would have to move further up to be able to include him as part of the attack. So you have to remember that even though like your little AoE 3x3 bomb goes off, it's only going to go up to a maximum range of 8. So that extra little edge that we were talking about earlier that goes out to the right, it's not going to be able to count as 9. So keep that in mind. All right, let's jump into his special attack. So Avalum is, I think he's the only. Let me double check. Pretty sure he's the only shooter with an interrupt. Yep, he is. So, uh, which it's good, especially if you have a team that doesn't have interrupts. Having one of your damage dealers getting it can be pretty good. I mean, it's not always beneficial because usually you think your damage guy is doing the damage and not preventing damage. But if he's staying in back, you'll still get pretty good amount of benefit from this, and then the effect that he gets is really good. So counterspell, range 8. It's one enemy making an attack, drawback 10, can't kill you like we talked about before. 0 damage to the enemy, but you will negate the target's attack. The second effect is you get a permanent that you are hastened. So if you forget what hastened is you do not incite reaction attacks. This is fantastic of a condition to have for a shooter. It's very often in this game that you'll get, either melee characters or, I mean, mostly melee characters like brutes, tanks, tacticians, bruisers jumping on top of you, right? Or chasing after you, and you get people that are like right here, and you're like, well, I want to move away, but I'd incite a reaction attack, so I'm just gonna do a sidestep, and then oftentimes you'll still end up taking strikes from your enemies right after, or you're essentially wasting your move, or you could get locked into a corner really easily. But um, with hastened, you just get to move away from him, so you got a much better chance to run back into the safety of your allies than to just take that one single sidestep. So hasten can be a very powerful effect. So obviously you're not always going to get this, but it's good to probably get this one earlier, especially for PvP. That can be really good to have earlier in the fight. PVE battle, it's not gonna you're gonna try to deflect some attacks, but it's not gonna be as a big deal because they're not always going after the shooter. So, all right, so moving on to Shockwave. This is an incredibly strong special attack. Range 8 up to 2 enemies, so you gotta hit 2 separate enemies with this same attack. So 16 damage hit per hit, and then plus the effect. You may move any number of targets hit up to 3 squares each. So you get a lot of movement out of that one. So it's almost like Arcane Blast, but it's not an area. It's just 2 different enemies. But you get to move them a whole bunch. So you get guys that are completely opposite areas, and you can shoot essentially in 2 different directions. Hit Zanac, may move him 3 spaces into lava or one of your allies. And same thing over here. So, and 16 damage is incredibly strong, right? I mean, even Arcane, part of the reason Arcane Blast is so good is 9 damage each. So you get, let's say you get at least 2 guys. That's 18 damage. Then plus 4 from accuracy, so you get 22. So that's an incredibly strong hit. Obviously on 2 different enemies, but still extremely strong hit. And then, if you can sometimes get up to 3 people on this. I mean, I've even seen, I think, 4. Maybe we've gotten 4 before in a battle. So yeah, getting 4, you get 36 plus the 4, so 40 damage. It's just like crazy strong. It would be a crazy strong special attack, let alone just primary attack. But Shockwave, you only get 2 enemies with it, but you do get to do it in different areas of your attack. But that 3 movement is really strong. Being able to move enemies a lot is a very strong effect in this game. So. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Averlum, he's extremely strong here. I mean, magic missiles, 10 damage plus the 6. You can do 20 damage just on, a stronger attack against the first guy and then smaller hits on the other ones. But, I mean, basically with Averlum, you're going to be doing almost 20 damage or more on every hit. I mean, or like at least every time you do one of these attacks. So. He's just incredibly strong. So what do you think, Code?
Avalon is good for both PvE, PvP, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The one thing, you know, I like to bring him to boss fights as well because Arcane Blast. You
Oh
can hit
yeah.
the boss twice.
Yeah, so
Since
that's a good point. So most of the bosses in at least the original arena, like the dragons, will count as a minimum of two. I think there is at least one boss that can count more than that. Um, but yeah, I mean, if they count as two, then you can basically just do arcane blast over and over on the boss and do max amount of damage doing that way.
which is an upside, and the downside is the counterspell doesn't always they don't work on
Yes, that's true.
bosses. So in that sense, it's pretty balanced. But um, I usually like picking him as my shooter. He's like my go-to in a lot of teams.
Yeah,
But um, you mean Shockwave is good. Arcane Blade. I mean, they're all good at effects and
yeah,
abilities. So he's just overall a very good character, and just it's a lot about placing him in the right spot to do the right amount of damage, especially like with Arcane Blast.
oh yeah,
It's all positioning with him. But just to say the stats overall for all of the shooters, um, the only thing that worries me is hit points sometimes.
yeah.
They are the lowest. So,
They
but
are, and Averlum doesn't really have any. As you can see, he has no defensive type ability. It's just pure damage and moving the enemy around. So, really, the movement and the counter spell are your only essential, defenses that you're getting to try to keep him alive. So, he really needs team support.
exactly, and that's why positioning is also important. You don't want him to get pelted by everything.
Nope.
So, and accuracy overall is a very good passive power. It does again
Sometimes it can be hard to get off, especially depending on the map or other positioning. I mean, in PvP it's easier. Sometimes in PvE it can be a little tighter depending on what map you're on, but not always.
exactly, and that also comes to a problem, especially when you face some of the bosses. Since we were mentioning that, a lot of bosses move you around
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So,
Yep.
but they're very balanced in terms of having accuracy, a good
Yeah.
basic attack, but they got to be in a good spot. You got to really be careful where you're putting them on the board.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about too, and it's often with these multi-strike type attacks, is you'll notice if you were to be able to get multiple strikes, sometimes you can get extra little bonuses on your attacks. So, I guess I don't have it out here, but if you play the campaign, when you level up in the campaign, there's a option to get a +1 power up, and you can get it multiple times. So it's good, but one thing to remember is you technically are only going to get it one time for each attack. So with Arcane Blast, you only get it once, because if it was every single, each attack, essentially you're multiplying his attacks, right? I mean, while
right.
everyone else would only get one, he would get like maybe 3 or 4 more damage, depending on how many people he hit. So uh, yeah, that was something that when I first played, I didn't know that. That was something found out later after looking up on like the forums about it. So all right, and then anything else we want to talk about is stats here. I mean, like I said earlier, he's the AOE king. So, keep that in mind too if you're going against just single targets, smaller type fights. Maybe he's not quite as good, but he's still gonna do pretty decently even with only a couple enemies. But he is, relatively pretty easy to do. Positioning is important, but I think because he just does so much damage, it's not completely, absolutely vital type thing. and his movement
Exactly.
is based really more on enemy movement than it is movement for himself. All right, so we're gonna go now to Niary. So she is kind of a, I'd almost consider her one of the more popular heroes of Arena. Um, I see her referenced in a lot of different team compositions, or people just using her a lot. And I don't blame her. I mean, a lot of her abilities are really solid abilities, and she's pretty well rounded, and of course just absolutely high damage. So, which we'll see right here. Shooter with great accuracy and versatility. She can shoot multiple targets at once or focus on a single target to deal extra damage. Ideal is a powerful source of damage that adapts to the opposing team. So that's pretty much dead on right there. A hero that can do AoE damage or do single target damage really well, because that's the downfall of Averlum, is
Right.
he's just not going to do quite as much damage when you compare him to like Zanac that we'll see um, in single target fights, but AoE target he's really good. So Niary's kind of the middle ground on that one. So extremely high defense, high offense, really low defense. I mean, one less than Avalon, and I think that's just because she doesn't have an interrupt to negate damage. Mobility looks like the same. Effects slightly lower. We'll kind of look at that. Probably because it's more just damage focused. And then handling, super easy handling because she's a great starter character for people. All right, so twin shot, range 8, up to 2 enemies. Benefit, you may strike 2 targets once or 1 target twice. And this is exactly what we're talking about with that versatility of, hey, do you really want to try taking this guy down, with 2 shots into one, or 2 shots on one guy, or do you want to spread out the damage? So 7 damage, it is a lot lower, so I mean, you're not getting quite as high as Avalum, of course, which should be the case, right? You don't want to make it too strong. And then the effect is that the last target hit is exposed. Exposed is reducing the defense against enemy attacks by 3. So whoever the last person is will be getting exposed. So it's really good for setting up for other damage dealers on your team. So that way they can take advantage of that exposed and make their attacks as well and get huge hits, especially after like twin shot. So you'll do 14 or 18 with accuracy for a single hit, or you'll do especially 7 on each, or well, it would be I guess 11 on one and 7 on the other. If you split up the attack, so that's still pretty good. Then we got explosive arrow, range 8, one enemy. Gain a bonus 2 to your roll and ignore all helpful conditions on the target. So, that protected? Yeah, forget about it. And there's no biggie for her. I mean,
What about it?
it's so this ability is so strong. Um, getting a bonus 2 to your roll is always really good. Um, but then also just ignoring helpful conditions on that target is oh, oh my god, it's almost insane. Just that extra little part there, which is easy to miss too or forget about. So you'll do 16 damage, which is not super crazy high, but um, still decent. And then you get to move the target 1 square, so it's a little similar to like Arcane Blast in the way that you get a little bit of movement. You can push somebody back, but anyway, so this is a good one of when you just know you need to make a hit. You just need to get at least 15, 16 damage on the board, and this will be the way to do it, especially when you're ignoring helpful conditions, like a tank. I mean, great for taking down a tank like Rourke, who's going to throw up like protected or Sir Eric, right, that we talked about in the last one, you can just ignore that protected and make that attack anyway. All right, so now we're gonna go to her special attack. So this one is the little bit harder one to hit. You gotta do so range 8, all enemies in a straight line. The benefit is you may move up to 4 squares before declaring the first target. And then it'll be 17 damage per hit, plus the effect that the first target hit is slowed. So, um, I mean, slowed is that one where they can't make a sidestep or move due to benefits. Um, so that's you know, getting slowed is really good, but 17 damage per hit. If you can line people up at least, get 2, 3 people in there, you're gonna be doing a crazy amount of damage. I mean, yeah. So Perfect Hunt's a good one, but it does require a little bit of finding that right time to do it. But it's not necessarily incredibly difficult to hit either. Um, Let's see. So then we're going to go to rapid fire. So rapid fire is an up to 3 enemies attack, and this one is a great one for. Um, Oftentimes what happens in PvP is, well, there'll be a couple scenarios. One scenario is you have one person that's getting completely beat to death by everyone else on the other team, or you'll get 2 or 3 people that will be all taking damage. Um, but Niary, this is where she's really shines, and I've seen this happen actually in PvP matches before. And this would be even good for PvP or PvE as well, besides PvP. Um, is she moves in, and then she has 3 different targets that she's shooting at, and they don't have to be adjacent to her. It's all, range 8 in all directions, right? So that's the range 8 for all the characters is pretty crazy. I mean, honestly, in this game, it's you cover so much of the board just by like standing on one part of it. You have pretty much half the board covered. But anyway, so rapid fire, I've actually seen it where 2 or 3 characters were pretty low. She comes in, throws rapid fire down, and she kills at least 2 people. Obviously, you still have to roll for each of those, but you're gonna get at least 17 damage on one and 13 on the other. So if they're low enough down, or they have other effects on them, such as making them vulnerable, uh, then you're just gonna do even more damage. So great one for taking down enemies that are low on health. When there's multiple enemies, so you can't use this on a single target. It's got to be across 3 different enemies. Anyway, I mean, I don't feel like there's a lot to say about Niary, mostly because she's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's not really a lot of crazy, intricate type of abilities with her. Really, the best thing with her is that explosive arrows, because she just has such a good chance just to make her shots. What do you think, Code?
I agree. There isn't much to say, but she's definitely a good character for beginners because she is pretty simple and straightforward. But Explosive Arrow, as you just mentioned, is excellent. And Perfect Hunt, it's about getting your enemies in a straight line, so that sometimes can be difficult to do, especially if they're spread out. Um, but Rapid Fire, doing up to 39 damage plus with accuracy,
Oh, I don't know, right?
you're putting some hurt in there.
They've been
So,
putting a lot of hurt on that team.
so,
I mean, 39 hit points is, almost a whole character's health, or
yeah,
half of their health.
I mean, if you
Obviously,
think,
it's split, but in total, that's what it is.
Right. Especially if there's a shooter on their team that's 55 hit points, even though, like you said, it's not on one person, putting in 39 damage is a lot, even if it's across three people. But
Yeah.
I like Niary. She's good. But like I said, if you're just starting out, she's definitely, I think, a character to try when you're
Yeah.
just learning the game.
And especially like with Twin Shot, being able to choose between doing AoE or single target, it's really good.
Right.
Because, we saw with Averlum, he's all just AoE, basically. And then we'll see with Zanac that it's the opposite. He's all single target and no AoE, pretty much. So, yeah. Great character. Definitely a good one for starter. All right, let's move on to Zanac, the Fire Sorcerer. Shooter focused on simple strategy of burning health down. He excels in attacking a single target, ideal in teams that need to do damage fast, including out of turn. All right, so he's got extremely high offense. Completely agree with that. Low defense, low mobility. Same, about the same effects, and handling is very high, and very much agree with handling. He's still very easy. I mean, most of the shooters are pretty easy. I think Juliet and Avalon might be the harder ones, but they're still, in general, relatively easy in comparison to some of the other classes where you need to know positioning a little bit better or how to use those abilities. One thing I was thinking about earlier that I don't think we made enough point about was slowed. So oftentimes, I think in my streams I point out about slowed is that you can't sidestep. Well, I don't know if I've really pointed it out or not, but it also says you can't move due to benefits. So there's a lot of characters that have benefits that I know we've used before to essentially, just ignore reaction attacks because benefits make you basically just, immune to them. So you can just walk through it. But when you're slowed, you can't. So making somebody slowed can be pretty strong if used right. I mean, let's look real quick here at somebody that has trample, for example. You put trample on the Minotaur, he gets to move 8 squares, and right, you may move up to 8 squares in a single direction through enemies. Meanwhile, you strike through enemies which you moved. Well, if you can't do that, then you just wasted trample. You can't. They're not going to be able to use it. Now, obviously, you don't know that they're going to be able to do that, but even like with bolt charge, um, he's doing four movement in a single direction before declaring the attack. So, especially for the Minotaur, it's pretty devastating to take those benefit moves away from him. I mean, it's not like this is a super consistent source anyway, because it's on a special attack and it has to be the first target that's hit. But it's just something to keep in mind when you're playing the game, because it does seem like a pretty underlooked condition. All right, so we're going to jump back here on Zanac, the Flame Sorcerer. So his range 8, one enemy. Like I said, he's a very single target focused hero. 13 damage plus effect. Another enemy within 2 squares of the target takes 3 damage. So you get 16, and then you count accuracy, you got 20 damage. So pretty good amount there. Obviously 13 damage, a pretty strong hit. One thing you'll notice too with the shooters, especially when you compare to some of the brutes, is I think the brutes technically have just ever so slightly higher damage output, but I think that's mainly because, I mean, which I mentioned, probably about 5 minutes ago, was the that range 8. It's so strong. Range 8 for all of your attacks is so good. I mean, Averlum here, he's covering almost the entire map if he's standing in the exact center. Um, so it's crazy good. But brutes aren't going to be able to have that range. They got to get up into the battle to be able to do their damage. So I think that's Dragori's reasoning as to why that ended up being the case. All right, and so anyway, so you get pretty good damage with Flame Blast. Another one of those abilities that's good for picking off somebody that's just a little bit low on health, or you're kind of chipping away at somebody else, but you don't want to focus all your attacks on them. Good for that. Then we got Inferno Shield, so range 8, one enemy, 12 damage, and then you choose an ally within range. The next enemy who hits that ally from within 2 squares of it takes 4 damage. So this is a good one. It's almost like kind of a defensive ability, really, a supportive defensive type ability, because you're going to put it on one of your allies to try to de-incentivize somebody attacking them, because they're going to have to take 4 damage to make that. So this is one of these ones where like I often am a little bit, really circumstantial between choosing between Fire Blast and Inferno Shield, because Flame Blast, is going to be, I mean, in the end, they're the exact same amount of damage, right? You got 13 and 3, and then on the other you got 12 and 4, so they both come out to 16, and then of course you get accuracy on either, you're getting 20, but um, it just really depends on the situation. So Flame Blast, if it's looking like um, you're just trying to, you see an enemy that's close to that ally to be able to utilize it. You want to get that in there. Versus Inferno Shield, let's say you only got like a single guy coming at you or an ally. I mean, but more likely it'd probably be for an ally. But you have a single enemy coming at you, and you try want to protect them a little bit, but at the same time still get that damage because you don't have another source to be able to take that effect from Flame Blast. So Inferno Shield can be essentially, it's really just the opposite, right? I mean, you're either putting it on another enemy or you're putting it on another ally. All right, so let's go to special attacks. So Eternal Blaze, this is a really good one to try to get on yourself pretty early, and the reason why is that permanent effect we're going to see. So range 8, one enemy, 24 damage, so very strong hit. And the permanent effect of you are empowered once per turn. Empowered is plus 3 damage when you hit when your attacks hit an enemy. Um, so this is getting this is the extra damage every time you do an attack, which really adds up. I mean, it's why we always talk about the importance of making sure to make those passives. If you hit your passives consistently, you're going to be racking up damage that does make a difference by the end of the game. Now, passives are a little bit stronger with 4, um, but getting empowered every single turn, I mean, you're now getting essentially 7 extra damage every single turn if you nail your accuracy and, of course, you have empowered on. So that is pretty much about a half of a primary attack with these stronger shooters each time. So it'll add up really quick. So get that going as soon as you can, especially for PvE. It's really important to do that. I mean, I know there is an evil power card that can strip away a permanent effect, so maybe you can get one of the heroic abilities that brings it back, or one of the heroes that can give you some of your permanents back. But still, it's a good trade-off. All right, so now we're going to go to Fireball. This is the only AoE ability that Zanac gets. Range 8, all combatants in a 3x3 area, which we talked about what a 3x3 is, and 18 damage per hit. Woo! So comparing up here to Arcane Blast, right? Arcane Blast was 9 damage per hit, and then you get a move, which is, it's all right. But 18 damage, you've doubled the damage for each hit. So it's insane how strong Fireball is. Um, it's I don't know. I always hate to say, that this is like the strongest ability in the game because there's so many ways that things can be potentially negated or or lessened, right? Especially with like multi strike type, attacks because, you reduce your chance of being able to hit them all. But 18 damage per each. So the first one you're going to get 22, at least if you hit one. If you get two, pop in another 18. So you're already at what, 40? Is that right, Code? Doing my
Yep.
math right?
Back to maths. Yes,
Four,
that's
yeah. Back to the math class. Here we go. So 40, oh my God, that's an extremely strong hit. And that's just with two, only with two people. You get a third person in there, and now you're looking at almost 60 damage. You're at 58 damage um, with three combatants that you get in that area. So that can be, 58 damage. That's an entire shooter's health points right there. So more than really, but it's extremely strong ability, easily one of the stronger abilities in the game. But you gotta place it right, and you gotta know when to do it. But it's great for burning down a whole bunch of people at the same time, especially if they don't even notice where you're at. And then top it off, if you already threw down Eternal Blaze and gave yourself empowered, put a little extra sauce on that meatball, and then you're turning that 40 into 43, or you're turning that into 61. I mean, just absurd how strong that is. I mean, maybe one
bonkers.
day I should actually just like sit down and try to like do all the math and figure out who has the absolute strongest attack in the game, right?
He's up there. That's potentially.
Definitely up there. I think, we talked before about like Cedric having pretty close to the strongest attack on there, but I mean, yeah, you get some crits, but yeah, I mean, there's some good ones in there, but wait, yeah, okay, yeah. So Bestial Fury, for example, strike the target twice. So that one was 24, and then if you're below 35 hit points, they take 12 additional. So so then you're talking about 36. So you're talking about 40. So this is even stronger than that. I think Trample was a 16 hit per each, and that's you have to go in a line. So that's a really strong one. But that's really hard to get that many enemies all in a line. So anyway, point is, Fireball, extremely strong ability. If you can get three people, you are going to be gravy. What do you think, Code?
I think what happens is if you hit 4 people with Fireball, you're going
Yeah,
bonkers.
I know, right? You've ascended into godhood if you can hit four enemies at the same time.
That's when the opponent goes scoop it up if you're playing PvP.
I know, right?
Um,
Yeah, if that
but
happens in PvP, like if you're able to actually get Fireball and hit all four heroes in that, oh my God, like they should just give you the game at that point.
you just have ascended to a god
Yeah.
mode at that
Just be like, okay, well, we give up.
because that's hitting damage, man. But I mean,
I mean, especially if you make it, because you then have to roll four times, so that is can be more difficult, and you don't get any benefits of like, ignoring any helpful conditions or anything. So there is, ways that can be negated, but you can also do stuff like being focused. So,
right,
Zanac is standing away from allies and enemies by three squares. He says he's focused, so he gives up his ability to move and makes that, and then it will make his enemies exposed.
which is even makes it even more dangerous.
Yep.
I mean, but I like Zanac Even not including Fireball, just in general, Eternal Blaze. I mean, 24 damage plus accuracy 28 possibly,
Hmm.
and being empowered for the rest of unless something knocks it off or whatever, or he dies.
Yeah, and
It's
empowered is extremely strong ability. I mean, I know we talk about how much we like blessed in this game, but I think empowered is almost even better just because you're getting three additional damage every single time you make that strike.
yeah, especially if you get that early on, you're dealing at that extra 3 plus 4 from accuracy. That's 7. You know, if you can
Yep.
get in like 5 hits in that because you did it early, it's gonna rack up a lot of damage fast.
Yep.
Um, but I definitely like in his primary attacks, his Inferno Shield, having that ability to give a little bit of support instead of just being all offense. Um,
Yeah.
but Flame Blast is just as good because you know someone has to hit your ally, bef- but with Flame Blast you're dealing the extra 16 off the bat.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's funny because it's really just kind of a trade-off between the two, right? Because with Flame
exact-
Blast, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna give up. Like, well, you're basically, it's something that you're more in control of. You know that you're going to potentially do more damage just straight up, and then you're going to do damage to this other enemy if there is one, which you wouldn't choose Flame Blast if that was the case. Versus Inferno Shield, you're not going to do quite as much damage, but you're pretty confident that someone's going to attack your ally, and you'll be able to get that extra damage.
and that's probably good with something like a tank,
Yeah.
especially with circles and stuff. But um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a great point. You put that on a tank, and somebody that was starting adjacent to the tank, with their passive ability that we talked about last time with circles, is if they don't attack the tank, then they will take 4 damage when they go to attack you, for example. But if they're like, okay, well, I don't want, to trigger circle protection, I'm just going to attack the tank then. Well, they still take that 4 damage. So you kind of make it, like almost a no choice for the enemy.
right.
So,
So that's the thing about Zanac is with Infernal Shield you can make your opponent go, well, great. Well, no matter what I do, I'm taking 4 damage
yeah.
unless I just don't attack at all. But I like Zanac. He's definitely, I think, even though I love Avalum, I think he's secretly my favorite
Oh, yeah.
shooter. Yeah, he's up there because just the damage he can deal.
Oh, I know. His damage is so good. He just, I don't know. For some reason, I think maybe it's just his art aesthetic. It doesn't seem that interesting to me. I don't really exactly understand, like what exactly his art style is going for. Like I feel like Avrum's like classic wizard, right? He's
Right.
got like the whole book and the staff and everything and the big beard and the cloak and all that. Versus Zanac, he's got like the mage garb, I guess. That's about it.
New Age, New Age Fire Sorcerer.
Yeah. Oh, those kids, those millennials and their fire sorcering.
Avatar: The Last Airbender cartoon.
Yeah,
I don't
pretty
know.
much.
Fire Nation attacking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So anyway, Sanic, very good, extremely high damage shooter, but he's not really going to get a lot of other crazy benefits. I mean, he does, can help allies, but he's really focused on just doing that high single target damage, and then which does make him relatively pretty easy to play too. So. All right, let's go on to Juliet, our last character of the night. Juliet, the Ice Sorcerer, a shooter with high single target damage capacity and the most accurate attack of the game. Very effective against tanks and bruisers. ideal in fast damage strategies and situations that require accurate shots. That is true, definitely very true. She's not quite as high damage as Zanac is, um, but she still gets some pretty good abilities. All right, so Icy Wind. This is definitely that ability that's you're gonna pick because you know that you need to make a strike. So Icy Wind benefit, you are blessed and you ignore curse, so that means you get to roll twice and use the best attack. Oh, you definitely increase your chances pretty significantly with Icy Wind. And then 11 damage. And the awesome thing too is, unlike a lot of times where if you are blessed, you just roll and it's like, okay, you roll and I get one, but I miss the other. Oh, okay, well, whatever. Well, actually, it does matter with Icy Wind because if you hit both of them, that target will take 3 additional damage. So you turn that 11 into 14, 18 if you count accuracy. So it's a very strong hit, and especially for an accurate hit because you have that better chance to be able to hit. And then let's see, Winter's Breath, range 8 ability, all enemies in a straight line, 9 damage per hit. Plus the effect, the first target is slowed, which this is definitely a um, more beneficial against melee type characters. So this is a great one for keeping those melee characters off you, so that way you can try to get away, so they can't just sidestep away from other enemies. Or even, I mean, even this is even a good one against other range characters as well. But
Mm.
anyway, so hitting straight, straight line, that can always be difficult in this game. I don't know if I've ever, maybe we've gotten 3. Do you think we've gotten 3 before? I think we
In a
have.
straight line.
Yeah. I don't think I've
I
ever gotten more than 3
think it was
though.
even on stream we seen a 3 in a row before, but I
Yeah.
don't.
So anyway, Winter's Breath really good in the way that you get a consistent slowed effect, and you can hit multiple people. So anyway, so that's a good one there for Juliet. And then moving into her special attacks, we got Frost Hurricane, range 8, one enemy, 22 damage, so pretty strong hit. And then you get a great permanent here. Permanent at the end of all your target's turns, you may move the target 1 square, then it takes 4 damage. So that's a extremely strong effect right there, right? I mean, taking
Mhm.
4 damage, that's especially each turn, right? And if you can line up your accuracy each time, you're getting 8 extra damage each turn once you get this off on somebody. So obviously it's going to be at the end of their turn, so you won't get it immediately. So you got to wait till it's on their turn for that. But you also get to move them, which is really good because you could be trying to throw them into lava or whatever else. Um, anyway, this is kind of a fun ability, but you have to remember to do it every time too. It's very easy to forget about this because it goes, you're going to put this card on there and then it happens on their turn. So it's similar in my mind to like circles, where it happens on the enemy's turn, and whenever something happens on the enemy's turn, oftentimes you kind of like start tuning out a little bit and not focus quite as much on what the enemy is doing, but more of like what you're gonna do.
Mhm.
So definitely got to remember to do your Frost Hurricane and move around, take that extra 4 damage because that 4 damage is gonna be huge. All right, and then her last special here, range 8, up to 3 enemies. So people are going to love this one. Benefit, freely divide this attack's 25 damage between the targets you hit. So this ability is awesome because where we talked about, let's say, Zanac with Fireball, and we talked with Averlum with Shockwave and Arcane Blast, which were other AoE strikes. This one's a little bit different. Instead of you essentially being very dependent on making all of your hits, what you're going to do is you're going to pick 3 enemies that you want to damage. You're going to roll against each of them, and then you're going to divide up 25 damage. So obviously you're not getting quite as much damage as, Fireball or Shockwave. But this is a very good one to make sure that that damage is all being applied and you're not missing out. So like with Xanax, let's say you were targeting, 2 or 3 heroes, but you only make one strike. You're only getting 18, maybe 22 damage out of it total. With Juliet, you're going to get up to 29, and you only essentially have to make one of those 3 different rolls, and that person will take that full 25 damage. But you get to divide it however you want, which is really the best part of it. And we've seen it happen many times. In fact, I think the last big stream we did, what was it, a couple weeks ago, right? Somebody did do this where I think one of our characters, he had 5 or 6 health left. So they're like, okay, well, you're going to take the 4 from accuracy, and then you're going to take 2 more from Blizzard, and then we hit 2 other guys. So now those people are going to get, the other 23 damage, and this person's going to take 15, which, oh, that just happens to kill that guy, and now the other guy's going to take 8 damage. So now he's a little, more weakened than he was, or he's getting close to death. So it's just that versatility of being able to use it however you want makes this ability really strong. Um, she's a fun character. I feel like their handling might be a little bit, I mean, a little bit high. I think she's a little more challenging to use than Zanac is. Um, and I do kind of find that some of her, some of the wording that they use, like very effective against tanks and bruisers. Um, I'm assuming it's because of the slowed effect, and then also being able to make additional hits or being able to split up damage. But um, yeah, I mean, it's she's a great character. We often call her Elsa because she basically just looks like Elsa. Well, maybe a sexualized Elsa. uh,
PG-13, Elsa.
Yeah, in fact, I think Juliet is one of the characters that has been referenced before and I've seen it, a couple different times of people complaining about the over sexualization of some of the female characters in the game, and Juliet is definitely one of them. Niary, not quite so much. Definitely Talia, which we talked about before. Um, Other than that, I don't. Is there anyone else that's really like that? I think. I
I
feel like the other ones are kind of conservative. I think really the biggest, offenders of maybe a little bit over sexualization is just Talia and Juliet. But otherwise,
definitely the
I think all of them else are just kind of, you know, normal. Not really
definitely the
anything crazy.
faceless emperor, of course.
Oh yeah, that his dirty faceplate. I mean, he's probably into S&M type stuff for sure.
This is a family stream.
Yeah, this is a family stream. We don't kind of talk about that stuff here. Okay. Well, anyway, back to Juliet. So she is definitely a great hero to start out with. I mean, even you don't need to be an expert at this game to do, but I think that Icy Wind especially is a great one. Any of these ones that give you better chance to hit, you're gonna feel a lot better playing this game. So her and Niary are great ones to start with because you're gonna feel so good about like, yes, I really made that hit, and oh man, look, I just I got this both my rolls, so now I get more damage, and then Blizzard. Oh man, I get all this crazy stuff of dividing up all this damage, and there's just a lot more fun to play. So their handily be could be considered pretty easy. I think she'd be maybe just a little bit less, just because there's a few intricacies on how to completely optimize the damage, but it's not too bad. All right, so let's jump into synergies with the other classes. So shooters, as I've mentioned in previous streams, I consider one of my core classes. So that would be brutes, healers, and shooters are what I consider core classes, because you should essentially probably always have a team that has at least one of those. You don't have to, but I recommend having one of those, because you're going to be able to do a lot more in either supporting your team with healers, or doing a lot of damage that will help provide some extra help to your team with either a shooter or a brute. So they're really good with just about anybody. Um, we talked a little bit earlier about like Zanac with like Inferno Shield being able to like support some other allies, maybe like a healer or controller or something, um, or we got like explosive arrows where you're ignoring helpful conditions on the target, so that she can be really good against tacticians or tanks, bruisers. Just all around, they're pretty good. I'm trying to think who are some good combinations specifically with some of these heroes.
I mean, I definitely would say, with someone like Zanac or even Juliet, any of the tanks really. I'm thinking even like Juliet with Jorana, because Jorana gets the ability where she can do attack at the end of the turn.
Hmm.
And then with Frost Hurricane, you're pushing that one character around dealing 4 damage as well. You can
Yeah,
really kind of combine those and kind of start getting some chaos going in there.
yeah, yeah.
But
Or even like Call the Master, where you get to move
right.
somebody else and make a basic attack um, on an enemy too. Of course, Jade. I feel like Jade is just really good with a lot of heroes, especially being able to do Inspire Greatness and give additional like conditions, like Empowered for Juliet or Niary or Averlum is very strong. Obviously, Zanac doesn't quite need that as much, but if you give Zanac Blessed, I mean, he would love that, because then he's making his Flame Blast and Inferno Shield even more likely to hit every single turn.
Mm,
Really, the biggest thing with shooters is because they're such low health and low defense, they do need a lot of support. So getting that healer or tank can be pretty critical on trying to either lock down that enemy, or be able to heal up your shooter or get them away from the enemy. So that way they can keep trying to focus on doing as much damage as possible, because if they get locked into a corner, that's another a thing you never want to get in this game, especially for like a range character, is getting like Averlum locked here in a corner where he can't go, and somebody's like right on top of him. He will be taking shot after shot of reaction attacks, and it's not going to be pretty. So you want to make sure that you can be moving around a lot. Um, yeah, I mean always with these core class combinations, um, it's a little challenging to give best for best shot. Obviously, so like with the telepath, for example, she gets to do mind link, which makes an ally move up to 2 squares and make a basic attack. This is a really good one with shooters, because for one thing, shooters have range 8, so they can pretty much hit everywhere, even though that they only have 2 movement, and then make their basic attack. Well, they got a basic attack at 8, so that's the strongest hit. So these are, really good, with like the telepath, for example. And I mean, even basic 8, in PvE, you often have to shoot down like doors. Um,
Hmm.
and having that 8 difference between like an 8 and a 6, you really feel it, especially with that range, because Averlum's going to be in there making at least maybe 1 or 2 shots before your melee character gets in there, so your brute would have to like run all the way up there before he even gets into position. He's only got one more movement, so, but you get to cover, you know, 8, 8 range with that ability. So they're really strong in PvE. I think just in general, just because you don't have to rely so much on quite as good positioning as the melee characters in the game. It's still important, but not quite to the same level. All right. Well, anyway, I think that covers most of the content that I wanted to go over tonight for the shooters. Let's see. Yeah, real quick here, look at Juliet as her remodel. Definitely a significant improvement. Looks like she's got like an ice branch or something that's coming up from the ground to, I don't know, be by her hand, or maybe she's shooting ice into the ground. I'm not exactly sure, but way better than the original where she's just kind of holding like a little ball.
Little ball of ice.
Yeah, a little ball of something ice or whatever. Even Xanax is a little bit improved. Not, I don't know. His cloak looks a lot better, and of course he's got flames around him, so it looks like a lot more is going on with him. But like I said, I feel like his aesthetic, I just don't really quite understand a lot, and um, just doesn't seem super great. I'm wondering if he's like he looks black obviously in this picture, but then you see like his remodeled miniature, and it almost looks like it's some kind of, I don't know if it's like Asian symbols or what it is on there. Maybe it's just in general like kind of like fantasy, different kind of crazy symbol type stuff, magic sorcerer school.
Gotta have something aesthetically pleasing to look at.
Well, it's kind of funny too when you think about it, because we got Ice Sorcerer and Fire Sorcerer, and then we just got a Wizard.
Oh, we're gonna add Earth and Wind eventually, I
There's
think.
got to be an Earth and Wind Sorcerer, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, not for Tenaris Adventures, but
yeah. Uh,
which actually brings up a good point to go into um, announcements. Is that this last week I got the Boss versus Boss rule book from Alex. It's in the Discord that we have, so I'll be sure to link it in the YouTube video. So come join the Discord channel with us, and you can check out the Boss vs Boss. But what's kind of cool about it too, which Code was the one to bring up, was it also shows the names and class combinations and classes of the new characters along with their with their names. So we've learned a lot more before, where Dragori just generally gave some examples, but they didn't tell us all the combinations. Now we know exactly what combinations are going to be, and we can start thinking out what each of them will potentially look like. So that's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited to look at that. Maybe we'll do I don't know. We might be able to do it next week. Next week will probably be the last stream I'll be able to do. We'll take a break for a couple weeks, just 'cause it's kind of that time of the year and we got a bunch of family stuff going on. I'm sure as many other people probably will. Um, so yeah, that might be a good ending, and then we'll pick back up in December and we'll go over the last two classes, the controllers and the bruisers. And I don't know, maybe I'll do like a quick video or something on the emperor and the shapeshifter at some point. But anyway, so we're getting pretty close to the end of these spotlight videos. I hope you guys like them and that they're helpful in you building your teams and playing this awesome game. So send me any messages or comments you got in Discord, Twitter, Twitch, wherever, and check it out and be able to take your feedback into and make adjustments as we go. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. You got anything else, Code?
Update day tomorrow.
Oh, good point. I wonder what we're gonna get for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, they've surprised me on the last few, so you
I
know,
know, right? I was really
it's
surprised on that one that I think it wasn't it the last one where we had right after the big event at Spiel Digital. And I
yes.
even, did in my video that I did the night before. And I said, well, there probably won't be anything, new or exciting, and I'd be surprised if they did. And boom, there they go. They really surprised me that there was.
See, you just never know with them.
No,
They're
yeah, you
um,
don't know what's gonna happen.
but other than that, I think you know that's it. I mean, definitely check out stuff on the Discord. It was fun to go through the boss versus boss rules. At least I started to. But definitely picked out the fact that they got names and do these all the classes and stuff, which is
Yeah, so make sure to join our Discord so you can see
definitely
that. And oh, along with that, I don't know if I mentioned this already, was we got the updated rule book as well too.
yes, we did.
So there is a few changes in there, not a crazy amount of changes, but there definitely is some nice little extra helpful tips. So be sure to check that out. It's on linked in our general channel in the Discord. So, all right, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.